the idea came from me, and it arose from a question. I taught law for a long time on a part-time basis, and a student once asked me, well, Professor Wilkof, but I see that there's both, as I recall, trademark and a copyright aspect of this. What do you have to say? And I must confess, I couldn't come up with a concise answer. I could pull from trademarks and copyright and give a litany about both, but I really couldn't come up with a narrative which would overlap the two in a way that would make sense in real time. And it gnawed on me for a few years, the issue and how I could deal with it. I was involved in finishing another book, and so just for that practical reason, I put it to the side. But about 2005 and 2006, I decided I would try to come up with a book proposal. And the obvious first choice was to come to Oxford. I mean, frankly, and we went back and forth. But I also felt that I needed another editor, coordinator, to help me. So I'm thinking about who to come up with, and I said, you know what? There's this sort of brilliant, wide-scoped IP academic with a practical background in India. I had known him, not personally, but through his writings. I had also known him because he had been a visionary in the blog world and come up with Spicy IP, which is one of the leading IP blogs in the world, and he had come up with it very early. And we had some common friends, and so I first vetted him with some common friends, and they said, go for it. And so I reached out to Shamnad, and then we found out, and this is if you believe in fate, that both of us had been at the University of Illinois in Urbana-Champaign. Those of you that are not in America, look on the map. It's south of Chicago. It's a major public university. We had been there at different times. I had done a PhD there 30 years ago, and he had been a fellow at the law school a few years, 25 years later. But I thought that somebody coming from Israel and somebody coming from India would both have a common experience in the cornfields of the University of Illinois. Somebody is telling us that we were actually destined to be mates. And so we mated, and that's how it happened. And he was enthusiastic. It was really something that he had felt comfortable and thought about over the years, and he was glad that we could find a common framework to go forward. And we both knew different people that could contribute, which is another benefit. I had my contacts, he had his contacts, different experiences, and that also contributed. When you get a book that's edited, in the sense that the coordinators of the book aren't the same people that are going to contribute most of the content, there tends to be a feeling that there's really no connection between and among the chapters, or the connection is at such a high level that as a practical matter there's no thread that runs through the work. And that's always bothered me about collections of essays or disparate authors for chapters, is there's this lack of continuity between chapters. And so what we did is we created a structure for each chapter, which we asked all of the authors to buy into, which was each chapter starts with a hypothetical situation so we can get a focus for the particular overlap. And then each chapter would be asked to address the issue both from the more academic point of view, but also from the practical point of view, and to bring them together. And then each chapter would end with a set of summary points so that the reader could then effectively test his or her understanding of the chapter vis-a-vis how the authors themselves viewed the exercise. And I got to tell you, in a number of book reviews, that observation about the uniformity of the chapters has been picked up by the book reviewers. And I must say, not because I told them anything. I mean, we were actually surprised by the extent to which individual book reviewers had noted that, and that told us that we were onto something in terms of achieving what we thought was a significant aspect of making the book special. in terms of one-stop shop, it's something that I really believe in. Frankly, the 3,000 person law firm will have the book in its library, but they may have the resources to take the chapter, any of the overlaps, and put a number of associates and generate a 30-page memo to the extent that they think the client needs to get to the fine points of that. And so it serves as a kind of initial guide for that kind of setting. But we really believe that as we talk about firms that have less resources to maintain substantial libraries, or have less of ability to engage in almost academic-like research on a topic for their clients, and maybe even more particularly for in-house legal departments, it provides a one-stop, high-level overview of issues that they for sure, and their clients for sure, encounter, but they don't have any real practical way of addressing the issue. And we believe this is the first time that these kinds of issues, which again they encounter on a daily basis, is been addressed and will enable them in their work to be more efficient. So that's the one-stop shop aspect, and we think together with the uniformity concept are two distinctive elements of the book. We also have, and it's about 150 pages of comparison tables. But what we did is we identified 18 countries which represented, I'd say, the book focused on U.S., U.K., and EU law. Those were and the contents largely reflect those legal systems. But the comparison tables focus on another 18 countries, several from the tradition we just mentioned, sort of U.S., UK common law, but most of them from the non-U.S. common law, UK common law system, to give readers a better sense of how the overlaps work on a more, in a more concise fashion. And what we did is we took each of the 18 overlaps and created 6 rubrics for briefly explaining how the overlaps work in each of these countries, and we produced what we call the comparison tables. And early on, when the book was first announced, a colleague from Australia wrote me, says, "Neil, got to get the book just for the comparison tables, because it's something that we're asked to opine on from time to time, and it gives us a first way of approaching the issue and being useful to the client, again, in real time, on an issue that we wouldn't have never had the ability to do so." So I would also mention that, and a number of reviewers have mentioned it as well. So again, I think they picked up on what we tried to accomplish in the book.